Because globalization is an uneven process, it produces an imbalance in the world's socio-economic and political categories. This condition divides the world's countries depending on their socio-economic and political standing. This lesson focuses on global divides, notably those between the global North and global South. In this discussion, we will aim at the following learning competencies. 1. Define the term global South. 2. Differentiate the global South from the Third World. 3. Analyze how a new conception of global relations emerged from the experiences of Latin American countries. To strengthen the discussion of the lesson, here are the guide questions. 1. What do the global North and the global South denote? 2. What is the Brand Report? 3. What is the principle of mutual interest as a recommendation of the Brand Commission? 4. What are the program priorities of the Brand Report? 5. What is the 5-year emergency plan recommended by the Brand Report? 6. Why is the purpose of the Summit of World Limits recommended by the Brand Report? These questions will be posted according to the topic for you to answer. The terms Global North and Global South are used to denote a grouping of countries based on socio-economic and political factors. The globe is divided between the North and the South, which is illustrated by the Brandt line. The Brandt line circumnavigates the globe at 30 n, crossing between North and Central America, north of Africa, and India, but is dropped towards the south to include Australia and New Zealand above the line. Willy Brandt proposed the Brandt line in the 1980s as a graphic representation of the North-South gap in respective economies based on GDP per capita. The Global South includes the low-income and developing countries of Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Oceania. Countries in the Global South have been labeled as the Third World, and they are typically present or former colonies. On one side of the so-called split, the Global North is often equated with developed countries. The Global North correlates with the Western world, including Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, and others. The great disparity between the Global North and the Global South is a global issue. In response to this, an independent commission chaired by Willy Brandt was established in 1980 to review international development issues. The independent commission came up with the Brand Report. The Brandt Report is a broad-based appraisal of the world's status, with a particular emphasis on the international economic system's inability to deliver social and economic equality for mankind. It focuses on the economic trends that must be reversed, as well as the remedies and policies that must be adopted as soon as possible to address the income imbalance between the northern and southern hemispheres, financial and economic instability, and the rising problem of global poverty. The nations north of the split are highly affluent as a result of their successful trade in manufactured products, whereas the countries south of the divide are impoverished as a result of their trade in intermediate commodities, where export earnings are minimal. In the Brandt Report, the principle of mutual interest is recommended by the Brandt Commission. However, to achieve a genuine sharing of the world's power and resources, the real motives must be human solidarity and a commitment to international social justice, because both the North and South will benefit from a mutual interest. The Brand Report illustrated the direct positive global effect of the economic growth in the South, to wit, 1. A large-scale flow of capital from the North to the South would have an anti-inflationary effect on the North, would bring the global economy out of recession in the short term, and would contribute to higher long-term growth. Overall, this would greatly increase global commerce while directly supporting growth in poor nations, improving economic prosperity and jobs in the North, and stabilizing financial markets. 2. The North's short-term protectionist tactics must be replaced with plans for dealing with the reality of worldwide competition. Commodity price stability, financial and monetary systems, as well as energy, environmental, and food challenges, are all mentioned as topics of shared interest. Trade between the North and South is a two-way street. The Brandt Report highlights specific actions in response to global concerns and issues, emphasizing the importance of all countries participating in global economic development, and outlining a series of tasks that must be completed over the next 2 decades, the 1980s and 1990s, for long-term structural reform to occur. 1. Priority must be given to the poorest countries' needs. Significant resource transfers from developed nations, as well as improved economic management in developing countries, are required to eradicate poverty. 2. Poverty, hunger, and malnutrition must all be eradicated through increased agricultural development and food production. For this to happen, international food security measures, foreign aid, and altered priorities are required. 3. Third world nations must be able to process their raw resources locally, as well as engage in worldwide marketing and distribution. This would increase their profits from commodities. Commodity prices must also be stabilized to avoid market swings. 4. Protectionist policies against third world competition must be replaced with proactive restructuring. Policies for adjustment should be independently monitored. Mutual collaboration and commerce among emerging nations must be fostered as well. 5. International regulations and national legislation must limit multinational businesses' restrictive business practices and encourage greater technological exchange. Developing countries would profit, and solid partnerships between host governments and major firms would be encouraged. 6. The international monetary system is the world economy's primary issue, and it must be addressed. Exchange rates must be stabilized, symmetry in the burden of adjustment to balance of payments deficits and surpluses must be achieved, and foreign liquidity must be expanded in an orderly manner. If monetary stability is to be enhanced, special drawing rights must be the primary reserve asset. 7. A new approach to development finance is required. Annual official development aid should be more than quadrupled, and significant extra market credit should be made accessible. The consequent boost in global commerce would benefit all nations, and the panel urges leaders of all countries to cease attempting to put their own house in order while ignoring the rest of the world, as they are inextricably linked to global markets. The Commission proposed a 5-year emergency plan that would go into operation immediately to mitigate the most significant threats and benefit all countries. The main components are: 1. A large-scale transfer of resources to poor nations to help them recover from the present economic crisis and to pay middle-income countries' deficits and obligations. 2. A worldwide energy policy to assure consistent oil supply, strict conservation, more predictable and gradual price rises in real terms, and the development of renewable alternative energy sources. 3. A worldwide food program to enhance food production, increase emergency food relief, and assure regular food supply, as well as develop a mechanism to secure long-term international food security. 4. Begin fundamental reforms in the international economic system to achieve a broad-based, participative, and successful international economic system, and strengthen commodity and manufacturing trade conditions in underdeveloped nations. The Commission views this initiative as necessary, and it will be implemented with the existing longer-term changes mentioned earlier. The Commission emphasizes the importance of a summit of leaders, with equal representation from developed and developing nations, who share the same conviction and mutual interest. This would allow for debate and agreement on projects and compromises. Such a conference might alter the international environment toward focusing on finding answers to present global challenges, as well as encouraging future dialogue and collaboration, which could pave the way for more fundamental economic transformation. The primary goal of the summit, however, would be to implement the emergency program in combination with other current negotiations. Overall, the paper contends that the global economy is intertwined. It emphasizes the reality that the North's self-interest must be sacrificed in the near term if they are to assure their existence as well as the survival of the South. This need for change is framed as a moral necessity that, if not met, will end in the mutual poverty of the whole planet. This lesson emphasizes the following: 1. The names Global North and Global South refer to a classification of nations based on socio-economic and political variables depicted by the Brandt line, creating a split between the North and South of the world. The Global South includes low-income and developing nations that are typically found below the Brandt line, whereas the Global North is frequently associated with wealthy countries that are primarily found above the Brandt line. 2. According to the Brand Report, the global economy is interconnected. It stresses the reality that the North's self-interest must be sacrificed in the short term if they are to ensure their own and the South's survival. This need for change is characterized as a moral imperative that, if not addressed, will result in global poverty.